Hey everyone, here's the review of the original Unit 3 Quiz 1, Creating and Graphing Linear Equations. Again, this is the original quiz, so you'll be taking a retake version of this, not the actual test that I'm talking about. So let's run through this. This was all about figuring out how to not only graph equations and lines, but also how to use it to solve algebraically and how to work backwards and make the equation itself. Big thing we talked about was making sure you actually go through and underline the key features. So Shelly is raising money for her dance team. She charges $10 for a shirt, which they already tell us is X, and $15 for a tutu, which they tell us is Y. The dance team needs to raise $600 total. Write an equation that models the situation described. Well, I know it's got to equal up to $600. Okay, this is a standard form equation. That means I have two variables that are kind of, both should be on the same side of the equation because they're adding up to some kind of total. Unlike linear, or sorry, not like slope-intercept. Slope-intercept is the one where you have a starting number and then you're adding like numbers on top of it. So that was poorly explained, but let's say you're running a race and you start 4 feet from the starting line and you go 2 feet per minute. That would be a slope-intercept form where you're starting at one point and then you're increasing a given amount. This is standard form because there's two things being put together to equal a total. That's a really big key word to help us. I know I've got X and I've got Y. Well, for every shirt she sells, blah, blah, blah. She gets $10. So 10 times X would tell me how much money she's getting for a shirt. If she sells a tutu, she gets $15 per tutu, which means I have to multiply them. So 10 times X plus 15 times Y needs to equal up to 600. That's our equation. So we got to figure out what each of those variables are to get this done. So in order to do that, we talked about to graph it, we want to find the X and the Y intercepts. Intercepts means where it crosses the X or Y axis. Now on the X axis, all of these numbers are 10, 0, 20, 0, 30, 0. Are we seeing a pattern there? They all have 0 as the Y value, which means if I want to figure out where this graph is supposed to cross the X-axis, I need to plug in 0 for the Y. So I'm going to have 10x plus 15 times 0 equals 600. Now what's going to happen is it's going to get rid of that variable, and I'm left with 10x equals 600. If I divide both sides by 10, I find out that x is 60, which is where I should put a dot on the x-axis because this is my x-intercept. That tells me where does the graph cross on the x-axis. Now I need 2 points to make a line, so I'm going to have to do the same thing, only this time instead of plugging in 0 for y, I'm going to plug in 0 for x and follow the same routine. This time I'm going to get the y-intercept. So this is going to go away. I have 15y equals 600. If I divide by 15, I'm going to get that y is equal to 40. So on the y-axis, I'm going to put a dot at 40 because this is the y-intercept. It's where the graph crosses the y-axis. I've got my 2 points, so now all I have to do is connect them. There's my graph. Now it's not super accurate, especially the way we've drawn it, but it does give you an idea of kind of where things would be. In other words, if I sell 10 shirts, then I have to sell about 32, 33 tutus in order to make ends meet. Now I don't know if that's for sure accurate, but that's kind of giving me a good idea of what I need to sell. You do need to remember to label. That was part of the credit. So the x-axis, you need to put shirts. In fact, it's number of shirts. It's the number of shirts you sell. It's not the money. It's not the total. It's the number of shirts. The y-axis, sorry, my work is kind of in the way, so I'm going to put it here, is the number of tutus. So you do have to include that to get the credit. So finding the intercepts, label correctly. Again, I know that X is shirts because it tells me. I know that Y is tutus because it tells me. So let's go down to number 3, or part C, whatever it would be. It says, how many shirts does Shelly need to sell if she sells 20 tutus? That was really hard to pronounce. Now I'm regretting making those sound so weird. So let's look back at our equation. 10 times the shirts plus 15 times the tutus has to equal 600. Well, they tell us that we're selling 22 tutus, which is the Y value. So let's plug it in for Y and solve for X. This is gonna go there. Oops, I put that in the wrong spot. That should be an equal sign. All right, so 15 times 22 means they made $330 just from the tutus. Let's get that moved over to the other side. Figure out what we need for shirts. So 600 minus 330 leaves us with 270. If I divide both sides by 10, that tells me that X is equal to 27 shirts. Please make sure to label. This is a word problem. We need to know 27 what? So 27 shirts is the answer for that one. Moving down to the second section, now we're actually creating the equation from the words. Okay? Now again, you've got two different options. You have standard form and you have slope-intercept form. Remember, standard form is what we did up here. That's the kind where it has to add together to equal a total. There's two things that are kind of semi-equal value that are being put together for a total. Slope-intercept is where you start with something and then you keep adding or subtracting from it until you get to the end. So let's go through and underline our key features. We've got $28 in the bank, or sorry, $2,800 in the bank. He spends $240 every day on tacos, and he does not add money to the account. So he's starting with $2,800. And what's happening every day? Is he adding money or taking money away? Well, he's taking money away. So I should be subtracting 120, okay? But it's not just one time it happens every day, which is why they want us to include X for X amount of days. Well, what's happening every day? Is he losing $2,800 or is he losing $120? He's losing $120, so X needs to attach to the 120. We have to include Y in here. This is slope-intercept form because you're starting with something and then you're decreasing the amount every day. Slope-intercept form is Y equals mx plus b. So here's our formula with that. Now this kind of looks a little funky. This isn't really the Y equals mx plus b that we're used to. So I'm going to rewrite it a little bit just so I'm used to that. The x I'm going to put in front, so I'm going to make it negative 120x. And plus 2,800. So either way you wrote it would have been correct as long as you made the 120 negative and the 2,800 positive and put the Y on the other side. And X is days, remember. Y is equal to how much money is in his bank account. So Y is money, X is the days that he's eating the tacos. So how many days will it be before Sam runs out of money? Well, how much money do you have when you run out of money? You have 0. So how long is it going to be before Sam has $0? Okay, remember we said X is days, Y is the amount of money in the bank account. So if my formula is 2,800 minus 120x equals Y, where should I plug in 0? Well, it's the amount of money, so I should put it in place of Y. So it's 2,800 minus 120x. Now you have to solve for x, okay? That means you got to get these on different sides, okay? You can't just keep it here. So let's add 120x to the other side. Now we've got 2,800 equals 120x. Now we can start to get x by itself. Divide each side by 120. And we find out that Mr. Sam is going to run out of taco money in 23.33 days. We usually don't use days as 0.33. So Sam can't really spend the full $120 on that 0.33 days. So I'm going to round down to 23 days. However, we did accept 24 days and we did accept 23.33 days for multiple reasons. He could have said that 24 days shows that he could have bought some tacos, but not maybe the whole $120. 23 days is the last time he could actually buy all of them, and 23.33 is obviously the most exact. So any of those work. Feel free to look back and rewind if you need to, and hopefully this makes you feel ready to take your quiz.